The moment a man begs for validation, he reveals something darker than weakness. He exposes the void where his power should live. Watch closely the next time you see someone desperately seeking approval, clutching at affection like a drowning man grasps for air. You're not witnessing a momentary lapse. You're watching the slow death of masculine sovereignty, played out in real time through 3 behaviors that strip away all pretense of strength. These aren't just social mistakes. They're psychological death sentences, written in the language of desperation and signed with the ink of lost respect. 5 centuries ago, in the shadow-drenched corridors of Renaissance Italy, a man observed the rise and fall of princes with the cold precision of a surgeon dissecting corpses. Niccolò Machiavelli didn't just study power, he autopsied it, examining the rotting remains of fallen leaders to understand why some men commanded respect, while others inspired only contempt. What he discovered wasn't pretty. Behind every collapsed dynasty, every betrayed alliance, every ruler reduced to begging for mercy, he found the same festering wounds, behaviors so transparently weak that they turned potential kings into pawns overnight. Today, we live in a world that pretends weakness doesn't exist. We're told vulnerability is strength, that neediness is connection, that indecision is thoughtfulness. But watch what happens when crisis strikes. Watch who survives and who crumbles. The masks slip, and suddenly Machiavelli's brutal truths emerge from the shadows like wolves circling wounded prey. The same behaviors that destroyed Renaissance princes now destroy modern men, only faster, more publicly, more mercilessly. The most insidious part? These behaviors feel natural. They feel human. They feel like the right thing to do when you're drowning in uncertainty or starved for connection. That's precisely what makes them so dangerous. They're psychological quicksand. The harder you struggle, the deeper you sink. And once others see you sinking, once they catch that scent of desperation in your voice or that tremor of need in your gestures, something primal activates in them. They stop seeing you as an equal. They start seeing you as prey. Let me show you exactly how this psychological assassination unfolds through 3 behaviors that Machiavelli identified as the ultimate betrayals of masculine power. That's where we descend next, into the abyss of what makes men weak. Let's begin with emotional neediness, the first and most corrosive of the 3 behaviors. Picture this. A man texts his partner repeatedly, each message more desperate than the last. "Are you okay? Did I do something wrong? Please just talk to me." With every unanswered text, he hemorrhages power like a severed artery bleeding out dignity. Machiavelli observed this pattern in the courts of Italy, where princes who openly craved their subjects' love invariably lost their respect. He wrote, "Men have less scruple in offending one who makes himself loved than one who makes himself feared." But fear isn't the answer either. The truly powerful man needs neither love nor fear. He needs only himself. Emotional neediness broadcasts a terrible truth. You've handed your internal state to someone else. You've made them the sun around which your emotional world orbits. And here's what Machiavelli understood, that most men don't. The moment someone realizes they control your emotional weather, they lose all respect for you. Not because they're cruel, but because it's human nature to despise what depends on us too desperately. Think about the last time someone needed you too much. Remember that suffocating feeling? That mixture of pity and revulsion? That's what others feel when you leak neediness. It's not that human connection is wrong. It's that genuine connection can only exist between two complete beings, not between a whole and a half, desperately trying to become whole through merger. The psychology runs deeper than mere attraction or repulsion. When you display emotional neediness, you activate ancient circuits in the human brain, the same ones that identify weakness in the pack, that signal who can be safely dominated, who won't fight back, who will always yield. You become the emotional equivalent of prey, and even those who consciously want to love you will find themselves unconsciously pulling away, driven by instincts older than civilization. The second behavior cuts even deeper: chronic indecision. Watch a weak man confronted with choice. He polls everyone around him, seeking consensus where he should seek clarity. He changes direction with every new opinion, pivoting like a weather vane in a storm. Machiavelli noted that irresolute princes, to avoid present dangers, generally follow the neutral path and are generally ruined. But modern indecision is more subtle. It disguises itself as open-mindedness, as flexibility, as keeping options open. The weak man doesn't just delay decisions, he outsources them. He asks his friends, his partner, his family, anyone who will listen, "What should I do? What would you do? What's the right choice?" Each question is another nail in the coffin of his authority. Here's the brutal truth Machiavelli understood. Indecision isn't caution. It's cowardice dressed in thoughtful clothing. The strong man knows that a wrong decision decisively made often yields better results than a right decision delayed into irrelevance. Why? Because decision itself is an act of power. It says, "I take responsibility for shaping reality." Indecision says, "I'm terrified of that responsibility." In the corporate world, in relationships, in every arena where power dynamics play out, the indecisive man becomes everyone's fool. He's the one given the tasks no one else wants, the one whose opinion is sought last and valued least, the one whose partner makes all the real decisions while he pretends to deliberate. His life becomes a series of defaults, not chosen, just accepted. Because choosing requires a spine. He's convinced himself he doesn't possess. The third behavior is perhaps the most pathetic: begging in all its forms. Not just begging for money or favors, but begging for attention, for forgiveness, for another chance, for understanding. The strong man asks once, clearly and directly. If refused, he accepts and adapts. The weak man asks repeatedly, each repetition more degrading than the last. Machiavelli watched princes beg for mercy from their conquerors and noted a universal truth. Men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities. When you beg, you don't just lower yourself, you elevate the other person. You create a dynamic where they hold all power, and you hold only hope. And hope, as Machiavelli knew, is a terrible currency in the economy of power. Modern begging is everywhere. It's in the double texts after being ignored. It's in the desperate apologies for boundaries you had every right to set. It's in the groveling for jobs, for relationships, for basic human dignity that should never require prostration. Each time a man begs, he doesn't just lose what he's begging for. He loses something infinitely more valuable: the possibility of ever being seen as an equal. Consider the employee who begs for a raise after being denied, returning again and again with new arguments, new pleas, new degradations. Each return visit doesn't increase his chances. It destroys them. His superior now sees him not as a valuable asset negotiating his worth, but as a beggar at the gates, someone who can be dismissed with crumbs or nothing at all. The realization hits like cold water on a fevered mind. These behaviors aren't just unattractive, they're self-annihilating. they don't just repel others. They corrode the very foundation of masculine self-respect. When you need too much, decide too little, and beg too often, you're not just displaying weakness, you're actively creating it, reinforcing neural pathways that make strength increasingly impossible. But here's what Machiavelli understood that self-help culture doesn't. The antidote isn't to become emotionless, decisive to the point of recklessness, or too proud to ever ask for anything. The antidote is to understand that true strength comes from radical self-sufficiency, not isolation, but the ability to be complete within yourself while engaging with others from a place of wholeness rather than hunger. The strong man feels emotions, but isn't ruled by them. He considers options, but owns his choices. He can ask for what he wants, but never degrades himself in the asking. This isn't about becoming cold or calculating. It's about recognizing that your internal kingdom must be secure before you can engage with others as anything more than a beggar at the gates of their approval. The transformation isn't instant. Years of conditioning don't vanish overnight. But awareness is the first cut of the surgeon's knife, the beginning of excising these behaviors from your psychological anatomy. Each time you catch yourself about to beg, to waver, to leak neediness, you face a choice. Continue the pattern or break it. Choose strength, even if it feels foreign. Choose decision, even if you might be wrong. Choose dignity, even if it means walking away empty-handed. Machiavelli died in exile, cast out from the very courts he once advised. But his insights outlived every prince he wrote about, every kingdom he analyzed. Perhaps that's the ultimate lesson. The behaviors that instantly expose weak men aren't just social faux pas. They're symptoms of a deeper abdication, a surrender of the throne that exists within every man's psyche. The question that should haunt you isn't whether you've displayed these behaviors. We all have. The question is whether you'll continue to let them define you, or whether you'll recognize them for what they are. The death rattle of a sovereignty you're either too afraid or too addicted to claim. The next time you feel that pull toward neediness, that paralysis of indecision, that degrading urge to beg, remember that you're standing at a crossroads. Machiavelli mapped 5 centuries ago. One path leads deeper into weakness, deeper into the comfortable slavery of letting others define your worth. The other path is harder, lonelier, but it leads to the only kingdom that truly matters, the one within yourself, where you are both ruler and ruled, both sovereign and subject, both the prince and the power behind the throne. These 3 behaviors, emotional neediness, chronic indecision, and the compulsion to beg, they're not character flaws to be hidden. They're alarm bells, warning you that somewhere along the way, you handed over your crown. The real question is, are you ready to take it back?